There is a video going around right now with about 500,000 views on it, and in that video, a fellow sharpens a chainsaw with a cordless drill and a part he stole out of a skateboard wheel. 10 seconds a tooth, that is the promise. No vice time, no filing bench, no $40 gadget from the saw shop. Just a drill, a round file, and a little steel bearing with a piece of whittled branch pressed through the middle of it. My name is Harlan Sawyer. I cut timber in these West Virginia mountains for better than 40 years, and in those 40 years I have probably sharpened more chains than I have eaten hot suppers. So when my grandson showed me that video on his phone, he expected me to laugh at it. And friend, I want to be honest with you, because that is the only way I know how to be. I did not laugh. Half of that trick is genuinely clever. Clever enough that the old-timers I learned from would have tipped their hats at it. But the other half of it, the half the video never shows you, is quietly ruining chains in 1,000 garages right now, this week, while we are sitting here talking. So here is what we are going to do today. I am going to walk you through exactly what that fellow built, because there is no talking in the original, just a pair of hands and a workbench, and if you blink, you miss what actually makes it work. Then I am going to tell you which part of it is smart, which part of it will bite you, and exactly how I would run that same trick on my own saw, because I have used something like it. That is the part nobody expects. Stay with me to the end, and you will know more about keeping a chain sharp than most men who run a saw every weekend of their lives. First, let us talk about why this matters at all, because a dull chain is not just a slow chain. A sharp chain feeds itself. You hold the saw, you keep it steady, and the teeth pull themselves down through the wood and throw out chips. Real chips, ribbons and flakes you could sweep up with a broom. The day your saw starts throwing powder instead of chips, fine dust like you sanded the log instead of cutting it, that chain is telling you it is done. And what most folks do next is the dangerous part. They lean on it. They push, because pushing feels like working. Now the bar is running hot, the clutch is cooking, the chain is riding up out of the cut, and you are one pinch away from that bar kicking back at your face. I watched a strong young man in a hurry do that on a landing one October, and the only reason he kept his front teeth is that the good Lord loves fools and loggers both. A dull chain does not just cost you time. It is the most dangerous tool on the job because it teaches you to force it. So sharpening is not a chore you get around to. Sharpening is the work. The cutting is just what happens between sharpenings. Now, the video. Let me walk you through what the man actually does, because the build is half the show. He starts out in the brush with a saw that will not cut, and he shows you the teeth right up close. Rounded over, gray on the corners, no bite left in them. Then he cuts himself a green branch about as thick as a broom handle, takes it home, and whittles it down with a big kitchen cleaver of all things, up on a block, until he has a rough little log about the size of a corn cob. Then he chucks up a sanding disc, spins that piece of branch against it, and rounds it into a smooth wooden plug. Here is where it gets interesting. He takes a ball bearing, just a common steel ball bearing, the kind that lives inside skateboard wheels and electric motors and half the machines in your house. A steel ring inside a steel ring, with the balls running in between, so the outer ring spins free while the inner ring stays put. He presses that wooden plug clean through the middle hole of the bearing, squeezes it home in a bench vise, and saws the ends off flush. So now he has a bearing with a heart of wood. Then he grinds a common nail down to a needle point, chucks it in the drill like a bit, and drills a fine hole dead center through that wooden heart. And now the whole trick shows itself. He takes a round chainsaw file, the same file you and I would use by hand, and he locks it into the chuck of a cordless drill. Then he slides that bearing onto the far tip of the file. The wood grips the file tight. The outer steel ring still rolls free as a wagon wheel. Do you see it now? The bearing has become a little rolling wheel riding on the far end of the file. He lays the file into the gullet of the first tooth, the curved valley under the cutting edge, and that bearing rolls right along the top of the chain. The wheel holds the file at one exact height. It cannot dig deeper. It cannot ride up shallow. He squeezes the trigger. The file spins. One breath, and the tooth is bright as a new dime. Roll forward to the next tooth. One breath. Next tooth. That is the 10 seconds. And friend, on camera, it is a beautiful thing to watch. At the end, he walks that saw back out to the brush, and it pulls itself through limbs as thick as your leg like they were bread. So, is it real? Let me give you the logger's answer. And the logger's answer to almost everything is, it depends on what you are asking it to do. Here is what is smart about it, and I will give the man full credit. That rolling bearing is a depth guide. The hardest thing about hand filing, the thing that takes a new man a whole season to learn, is holding the file at the same height on every single stroke of every single tooth. Too high and you polish the top of the tooth and sharpen nothing. Too low and you drop into the gullet and hog out steel where no steel needed to leave. The saw shops know this, which is why they will sell you roller guides and clamp-on jigs, and good ones too. Loggers knew it before the saw shops did. Men on the crews I came up with made their own file guides out of scrap, brazed and filed and fussed over, because a guide means every tooth comes out a brother to the last one. A chain with 40 even teeth runs straight and smooth. A chain with 40 different teeth wanders in the cut, pulls to one side, and rattles your arms numb. That bearing rolling along the chain is a homemade roller guide, and the wooden heart is what lets a man make it with nothing but a branch and a vise. Honest, I would call that clever as a pocket watch. But now let me tell you what the trade knows that the video does not say out loud. And this is the part I want you to hear, because this is the difference between a trick that saves your Saturday and a trick that eats your chains. A file is not a drill bit. Look close at a round file sometime. Those teeth are cut in rows, angled to slice steel when the file moves along its length, the way you push it by hand. Push forward, it bites. That is the whole design. A couple pounds of pressure, one direction, nice and slow. When you spin that file in a drill, you are dragging every one of those teeth sideways, a direction they were never cut to travel. Now, will it still eat metal? It will. Spun fast enough, anything hard eats anything softer. But it scrapes instead of slicing. It leaves a torn, ragged finish under that shine, and it makes the one thing a cutting edge cannot forgive: heat. The cutting corner of a chainsaw tooth is a thin little sliver of hardened steel. Hard because it was cooked and cooled just right at the factory. That hardness is called temper, and heat takes it back out. You have seen it happen if you ever held a grinder to steel a breath too long. That straw color that creeps in and then turns blue. Pretty colors, and every one of them is the steel telling you it has gone soft. A tooth that got hot will shave hair off your arm the day you sharpen it, and by the second tank of gas the edge is folded over like a tin roof in a windstorm, because the hardness that held that edge up is gone. And here is the mean part. You will not know it happened. You will just think your chain dulls awful fast lately, and you will sharpen it more, and heat it more, and dull it faster, and around you go, wondering why your chains do not last the way they used to. So the drill is a horse that will run away with you. The video man, give him credit, touches each tooth for just a blink. Watch a fellow at home try it, and he will lean on that trigger and grind each tooth for 5, 6, 8 seconds, because more feels better. More is not better. More is a soft edge and a dead chain. Second thing, the bearing holds the height, but it does not hold the angle. A cutter is filed at a slant, about 30 degrees across the bar. That sweep is what makes the corner of the tooth slice across the wood grain instead of scrubbing at it. Hand filers keep that angle by eye, by the witness mark stamped on top of every tooth. Spinning file or no spinning file, that sweep is still your job, held steady with your own 2 hands. and the drill is heavier and clumsier at holding a line than a bare file ever was. And the third thing, and this is the one that separates the men who file from the men who own files. The video never once touches the rakers. In front of every cutting tooth stands a little rounded fin, the depth gauge, the raker. That fin decides how thick a bite of wood the tooth behind it is allowed to take. Every time you sharpen the tooth gets a hair shorter and a hair lower. If the raker does not come down with it, sooner or later that fin stands taller than the cutting edge behind it, and your chain, with 40 teeth sharp enough to shave with, slides across the log and cuts nothing at all. Then a fellow tells me his chain is wore out, and I hand him a flat file and a $2 gauge, 10 minutes of work, and his wore-out chain comes back from the dead. Sharp teeth with tall rakers is a racehorse hitched to a stump. The trick in the video makes the teeth pretty and never once looks at the fin that governs them. So here is my verdict, plain as I can make it. Would Harlan Sawyer use the bearing trick? Yes, and here is exactly when. You are out working and you run your chain into a rock or dirt or old fence wire hiding in a trunk, the things that kill an edge in one heartbeat. Now you have got 40 ruined teeth, real damage, a lot of steel that has to come off every one of them, and daylight burning. Filing all that by hand is half an hour of knuckle work. That spinning file with the rolling bearing will bring a rock chain back from the dead in a few minutes, every tooth even, right there on the tailgate. For rescue work, for hogging a wrecked edge back into shape fast, it is a fine trick, and I mean that. But for the everyday, no sir. The everyday belongs to the hand file, and it always will. Because here is the arithmetic the video skips. A chain that gets touched up a little and often never needs rescuing. My whole working life ran on one rule, one my grandfather Enoch ran his crews on before me. Every tank of fuel, the saw rests and the file comes out. 3 strokes a tooth. That is all a chain needs if you never let it go all the way dull. 3 light strokes, out and back on your feet in 5 minutes, and the chain never knows a bad day. Enoch filed by lantern light on the tailgate of a truck older than I am now, file card in the bib of his overalls, and he could tell by the sound of the stroke, that clean ring, whether the file was biting right. He would have looked at that bearing trick a long minute, called it cheating smart, used it on the next rock bit chain, and gone right back to his hand file at the next fuel stop. Both things are true at once. That is the part the internet has a hard time with. Now, if you are going to try it, and I know some of you already have the drill out, then do it the way an old timberman would do it, and not the way the comment section will do it. Use the size of file your chain calls for. It is stamped on the box the chain came in, and any saw shop can tell you from the numbers on the drive link. Wrong file, wrong shape of tooth. No guide in the world will save it. Dab a spot of paint or marker on the first tooth you touch, so you know when you have gone all the way around. Sounds simple. Every man who skipped it has sharpened half a chain twice and the other half never. Touch. Do not lean. 1 breath on the trigger per tooth. Light as laying a baby down. If you ever see straw or blue color on that steel, you stayed too long, and that tooth has already paid for the lesson. Do every other tooth from one side, then come around the saw and do the rest, because the teeth alternate, left and right, and the angle has to match its own side. And when the teeth are done, you are not done. Flat file and a depth gauge on those rakers, every 3rd or 4th sharpening. That is the step that keeps a sharp chain actually cutting, and it is the step that trick videos have never once shown. Because a flat file spinning in a drill does nothing but make sparks. Last thing, and then I will let you go. A new chain costs you $25, $35 more every year. A round file costs $3. A man who learns to keep an edge, whether with a bare file or with a bearing rolling on the tip of one, will run one chain for years and sharpen it 100 times. A man who forces a dull chain buys a new one every season and never knows why his saw hates him. The cheapest tool in the whole timber trade is the one that fits in a shirt pocket, and it always has been. So dig that dull chain out of the shed, the one you gave up on. Try the 3 strokes. Or try the bearing if the rocks got to it first. Then come back and tell me in the comments which one brought it back. And tell me what your granddad kept in his file box too, because I read every one of those. And between us, we are keeping a trade alive that the fast videos only borrow from. Stack it dry, friend. It keeps.